Dunleavy looking, finds Rose. Rose trying to get open, fires away. Bang! It's over!
Across all sports, there's no moment more memorable than the buzzer beater. That last-second long shot that defies destiny and elevates one above another. It's the ultimate end of a tough and tense competition. A moment of triumph and heartbreak that fan bases bicker about for decades to come.
Michael Jordan has won it for Chicago.
While boxing doesn't have a buzzer, bell beater just doesn't quite have the same ring. Tonight, we relive the greatest last-second KO in boxing history. Julio Cesar Chavez was a longtime champ by 1990, the year before he broke Roger Mayweather down to win the WBC title at 140 pounds.
Right hand from stalking relentlessly. Round 9 of a war at the Forum. Whirls around Julio Cesar Chavez.
South of the border, he's a borderline deity.
Chavez now opts for the bright lights that boxing has to offer. And oh, how things have changed.
He grew up in a huge family in an abandoned rail car. From those humble roots came one of the most textbook perfect pressure fighters to ever live.
Think of anybody that's close to him right now because of the length of his career, the way he's handled it, and the mastery over anybody they put inside with him. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't know anybody that's close to him.
Boy, if you like boxing, you'll love this fight.
In heart, though, Chavez was a brawler. He never met a man he didn't want to fight.
Chavez reminds me of a surgeon. I mean, he looks like he knows precisely what he wants to do, what part of the body he wants to work on. He's an amazing fighter.
Julio Cesar Chavez.
Chavez was the most refined savage of his age. But at 27, and with 2 weight classes already destroyed at his feet,
He's hurt very bad.
with 66 straight wins on his record,
A scoring punch. His action in the second round.
the only question was how long could he keep the streak alive. The 1984 U.S. Olympic boxing team is the most star-studded in history, but the least suspecting member of the team made the biggest noise. 17-year-old Meldrick Taylor grew up in North Philadelphia. Meldrick just barely made the team, but once he's in with fighters from around the globe, the kid from Philly did more than dominate. He didn't lose a single round, en route to winning a long-shot gold medal at 126 pounds. The kid was a prodigy. He had that rare and precious speed that only nature and nurture can come together to produce. He had solid power and skills. But when Meldrick stood his ground and let his hands go, he threw shots with eye-popping fluidity. His combinations came in burst fire that walked its way up his target's center of mass. His style alternated between fearless and reckless.
In the red corner, Meldrick Taylor of the United States of America.
5-0.
Just walk in. He likes to wade in. The first round, exhibiting, becomes accustomed. This little combination partially picks up, but he works lefty into the corner and goes to work.
In his pro debut, he quickly folds Luke Luce in half with a body punch.
Letting it continue, but it doesn't appear for long. Taylor with a good left again. Lefty goes down. Lefty trying to fight back reflectively, but Taylor ends it right here with the third knockdown of the
Meldrick quickly developed a reputation as a must-watch fighter.
This has been like an amateur bout going 6 rounds.
While he had the gift of speed and had been honing his skills since childhood, his body was growing still. As he fills out physically, he develops a warrior mentality. Given his ability, he could outpoint most men with ease. He just seemed to choose not to. Meldrick's talent allowed him to do whatever he wanted to.
It is easy to realize that he might have a broken wrist.
What Meldrick inevitably wanted to do was go to war in the trenches. His energy and punch count never dipped. His fights are the sort of high drama that boxing fans demand. Momentum swinging as fast and wild as the fighters themselves. Meldrick stood his ground and let his hands go freely, always with the faith that if his opponent was quick enough to land a shot on him, Meldrick was quick enough to counter with entire combinations. He'd gladly take one to throw back three. It was a numbers game. Meldrick simply couldn't lose. It seemed like a sound strategy, even at the championship level. Meldrick fought his way into a title shot against Buddy McGirt.
Arrive much quicker than they're used to, and they'll both have to make the best of the Dutch first. They score a lot of points, but don't do a lot of damage. He says he's going to do, and that was not the way this fight needed to go. Not too tactical, is it?
And the strategy played out to perfection.
There's no action going on. Some good right hand lead by Meldrick.
Buddy struggled to keep up with the elastic speed and volume of the prodigy from Philadelphia.
Turn your man, punch from angle, and then when you're finished from punching, escape from angle. Get back in this fight, it appears. He has to look at Buddy. On top of the direct leading title.
Meldrick went to war with all the confidence and caution of a child soldier handed an automatic weapon. Buddy's corner jumped in during the 12th to save him from another one of Meldrick's bursts of fire.
Every so often in boxing, two landmark talents are brought together in a match of risk and reward unlike any in recent memory.
It took some time to work out the unification fight between Chavez and Taylor. Neither man wanted to let ring rust set in.
Averaging 85 punches per round,
They won another 9 fights between them before their unification was finally set.
plastic footwork to get off ahead of his opponent.
By the numbers alone, you knew it was bound to be a classic.
Chavez is one of the toughest fighters you'll ever see, and Taylor is given a good chance to end his 10-year winning streak. If ever there was a reason for great expectations, this is it.
Each man independently averaged nearly 70 punches a round. Each man's A game was exchanging in the pocket. Each man had the unbreakable confidence of being an undefeated champion.
The greatest little fight money can buy. A bout between two extraordinarily talented, undefeated champions whose styles seem to be perfect foils for one another.
Chavez starts slow, getting a look at the flashy speed of the Philly prodigy. Chavez slipped and rolled a lot of offense and absorbed whatever he couldn't.
Not to do damage until it has to offer. And then what he'll do, he'll do before. He has extraordinary.
Meldrick threw a little bit of everything, all of the time. Chavez got a good look at the champion across from him. Saw and felt those blurring gloves early and often. But to call it a case of tortoise and the hare does a disservice to just how dangerous Chavez is. He was less of a tortoise, more of a snapping turtle. Chavez was on the wrong end of a speed discrepancy. But a combination of defensive savvy and stumpy power made him a menace every moment. Chavez came out in the second and countered, short and clean, to put blood in Meldrick's mouth. Meldrick responded the way he always did, with a flurry of punches.
Still trading 4 blows to 1 for Chavez. Chavez tries to left and he won this fight in fine fashion. Mighty vision, but he still places those punches so well in there. He's going to have built an early lead on the scorecard against the man who is 60's near-perfect performance so far for Meldrick. Chavez keep Chavez occupied. Is that it's hard to play offense when you're playing defense every second.
By the mid-rounds, it was clear the Mexican great was being out-hustled.
Trying to get rest in there. And within the last 30 seconds, Chavez has landed 3.
The punch output kept piling up.
Inside and Meldrick before we land 1.
Meldrick kept banking rounds on bravery and raw numbers.
This is a masterful fight. Is down in the 30s, so he has not been as effective he expects to be. Let's take a punt.
His flashy speed was blinding everybody but Julio. From the fans, to the judges, to the commentators, nobody could see anything but Meldrick throwing and landing.
Chavez landed a left. Taylor flurries, fury. It's incumbent on Taylor not to give Chavez an unnecessary back into this. Look at the speed of Meldrick Taylor's flurry.
But Julio knew from experience, from the dozens of men whose wills and bodies he'd broken before, Julio knew what he felt.
He hasn't been able to get him to the ropes, and he's being outpunched 2 or 3 to 1. Has completely dominated Chavez with hand speed and vicious infighting. Taylor may well have won every round.
A growing indifference to Meldrick's power. He didn't mind losing battles to win a war. He felt he was landing short, solid, and often.
He's carried out George Benson's game plan to perfection. Whoa, he's trading punches inside, and Chavez again seems to wobble slightly as Taylor lands at will. Brilliant stuff from Meldrick Taylor. Chavez on the verge of going down. Taylor has to watch out. Instead of being hit by his left hook, he needs to watch out for those shots. I'm watching the effects of the punch.
Before the final round, Meldrick's face is a distorted mask. His white and blue trunks had become a butcher's apron covered in his own coagulating blood. Meldrick throws his hands up in a beatific triumph. He won every battle in a war 3 minutes from over. All that was left was survival. Meldrick changed nothing, still stood his ground, threw an amount of punches that he hoped would intimidate. He fought with his heart instead of his head. With just 24 seconds left, Chavez connects on a short 1-2 that does something none of the hundreds before could do. Shook Meldrick's knees. The kid came forward, throwing both hands on unsteady legs, chasing Chavez into a corner. As Chavez circled his way out, he found a perfect angle for a right hand that put Meldrick down. All-night referee Richard Steele had largely, commendably stayed out of the action. He was now stuck in an unwinnable position. Meldrick is to his feet by 5. Steele counts all the way to 9 and asks if he's okay. Meldrick says nothing. Steele waves it off.
Unbelievable! Richard Steele stopped the fight with fewer than 5 seconds to go.
2 seconds left on the clock. Arguably the most controversial referee call in boxing history. Steele defended his decision beautifully in his post-fight interview.
Well, Larry, I stopped because, Meldrick had took a lot of good shots, a lot of hard shots, and it was time for it to stop. I'm not the timekeeper. I don't care about the time. When I see a man that has enough, I'm stopping the fight.
Should you have given this man in a fight this big a chance to survive?
There's no fight worth a man's life. I don't care what it is or how many I do. When I get tired of seeing the guy getting pound, and I think he had enough, I'm going to stop him.
Maybe Meldrick did deserve his night at the top of the mountain, but he'd also spend the night in Valley Hospital. In purely medical terms, Meldrick was a mess. The swelling was more than superficial. An X-ray revealed the bone behind Meldrick's eye was fractured. He was immediately given fluids, later given a 2-pint transfusion after urinating nothing but blood. So ultimately, maybe Richard Steele was right. No fight is worth a man's life. It's better to not know which punch is going to be one punch too many.
Angelo Dundee wants to stop the fight.
Boxing crosses all language and culture. It's a reflection of our constant struggle for survival against an inevitable end. A reminder of the grit and stamina that brought us to the top of the food chain. It also reminds us what happens to old men in a sport for young ones. With every rise comes a fall. Every training camp and mile ran is an attempt to put that fall off for another night. The fall was surely coming for Mexico's beloved Gran Campeón, but not tonight.